Nintendo is known for making many of gaming's most beloved and well-known icons. But in 1981, perhaps the most important icon in all of gaming history was created by a young, unknown programmer at Nintendo who had a love for Popeye. He had turned this desire to create a Popeye game into something else, since he was never able to obtain the license. That game is Donkey Kong, and that programmer was Shigeru Miyamoto. Donkey Kong is a game that features a giant gorilla that has escaped from captivity of Jumpman, who would go on to be known as Mario. And in his escape has captured Jumpman's girlfriend, Pauline, and has taken her to the top of a construction site. Unfortunately, the NES version is about the only legitimate way you're going to play it unless you find an arcade of some kind that still has the game. But the NES version features 3 levels, and they repeat forever in an arcade style. Well, I say forever, but not really. There is actually a kill screen where your bonus, which also serves as your time, starts at like 700, which is not enough time to actually reach the top and complete the level. And that's what's known as a kill screen. On the NES version, it takes like 120 some odd cycles to get to the kill screen. I will not be doing that in this playthrough here. But yeah, like I said, the NES version features 3 levels. First you have the girders and barrels, then you have the springs, and now you have the rivets. And these levels just repeat endlessly until the kill screen, of course. And that is Donkey Kong. However, there is more to this series than that. Much more indeed. Sometimes enemies are very uncooperative. Now, I'm not going to bore you with 120 some odd cycles just to get a kill screen, but there's more to this than just this. While Donkey Kong was mainly enjoyed by people on the NES, it was originally released in the arcade in 1981. It featured an intro that showed Donkey Kong kidnapping Lady, or Pauline as she's known, and destroying the construction site by stomping around. The arcade version is a very different beast from the NES version. It features well, the patterns of the game are very different. And that is crazy where that Sparky is. I've never seen them get that far up the level. But the patterns are very different. The NES version, I started you out with Donkey Kong doing basic things with the barrels. Things were moving at a fairly slow speed. And with each cycle that you went through, it became a little bit harder. Donkey Kong would do more with the barrels. But in the arcade version, there is no increase of speed. It starts out insanely fast and very difficult to maneuver through. A lot of the times you're waiting for an opening, which is something that you didn't really do a lot of in the NES version. In the NES version, you spent more time just platforming around rather than waiting for your opening. But beyond that, the arcade version was the game in its full glory. The NES version had cut most of the animations, such as the intro, and it even cut out an entire level. This game has all of that. You can see Donkey Kong climb the ladder. Yeah, for so long, this particular instance of the game, or at least, you know, all the perks about it that would make you really want it, were only available in the arcade. One thing that is actually different is Pauline's location in this level. She's actually on top of another girder that's above Donkey Kong, rather than being held captive next to Donkey Kong. And that was a really bad run, so we're going to play through that again. And I apologize if the sound isn't perfect on this, but there seems to be emulation issues with the sound. Yeah, I have to emulate this. Kind of impossible for me to capture it otherwise. I mean, I guess technically there is a version of the arcade game on Donkey Kong 64, but it starts you with, like, no lives and, like, on a higher cycle. And it's pretty difficult, actually. That was close. But yeah, the arcade version, unlike the NES version, starts you out at the girder level. Then you move on to the rivet level, which was originally the third stage. And when you complete the first cycle... Oh god, that was close. I thought I had grabbed that hammer. Come on, dude, get out of the way. When you complete the first cycle, you start back over on the girder stage like you would on the NES. And then your next level will be the spring level, just like on the NES. And then you get the rivet level. And then on your third cycle is when you finally get access to all 4 levels. I would love to show off the 4th level in the arcade, but it's quite hard to even get to, much less beat. The hammer, you can think of it a lot like the power pellets in Pac-Man or something. It makes you able to destroy the Sparkies and barrels, but it does not make you invincible. The hammer has 2 frames of attack, and if the hammer is up and you walk sideways into an enemy, you will be defeated. If the hammer is down and an enemy or barrel falls on top of you, you will be defeated. So I guess it makes you invincible 50% of the time, kinda. Anyways, there's even a new animation for when you actually beat the game, so there is that. I'm just gonna see how far I can get on this one last run through before we move on to the next thing I want to show off. Oh man, 2 barrels at the same time. Defeated. That's probably where my run is going to end, on the second circuit. Wish I could do better, but I can't be bothered enough to put the time into such a simple game to get really good at it. Like the NES version, it was easy to get decent at, but not the arcade version. But there's one more version I want to show off. The last version of Donkey Kong is on the NES, but it was only released in Japan on the Famicom. I think, anyway. I could be wrong on that one. But I know as far as Europe and America is concerned, it was never released. Not originally, anyway. Europe got it through the special red Wii that came out. I think it was to celebrate Mario's 30th anniversary. And the United States did not, or North America I should say, did not get that version. Instead, we got it through a Club Nintendo promo on the 3DS, and it is Donkey Kong Original Edition. It's not exactly the same as the arcade version, but it does have all the levels, and it restores the animations that the original NES version had previously stripped. And it is my personal favorite version of Donkey Kong, because all the tips that work in the NES version do work here. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, it doesn't show the animation with Donkey Kong, you know, climbing up the ladders and stomping on the girders and all that. So that's different. But everything else is here. So I'm a lot better at the NES version than I am at the arcade version. So hopefully I'll be able to show you guys some of these tricks. And this is the 4th stage. Many people call it the pie factory or the cake factory or whatever. That makes no sense to me because this is a construction site. I refer to it as the cement factory. So basically, you've got conveyor belts there, and your objective is to climb up either ladder at the top. And the conveyor belts will randomly spit out containers holding cement that will defeat Mario if he jumps on them. So that's a trick right there that I wasn't able to pull off in the arcade because the conveyor belts move too quickly, is that you can jump from that conveyor belt straight to the top there. So you can see that there are 3 positions that the springs start from. One of them is actually on Donkey Kong's foot, one of them is just to the left of it, and one of them is slightly off screen. Now, on the first 2 cycles, you really don't have to wait for that. But on the 3rd cycle and beyond, it is imperative because of how fast the springs move along that you make sure you only try to climb up the ladder to Pauline after the spring appeared all the way from the left. That is the only time that it will be safe. Now, about Pauline, she was not always called Pauline. Originally, she was called Lady. And I don't believe it was until her redesign in a later game that she was given the name Pauline. And I think even then, the name did not stick in Japan until the Game Boy Advance Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. I could be wrong on that point. I know that the name Pauline did not stick for a while. I think some people have even referred to her as Madonna at one point or another, but She is Pauline. That is her current name, regardless of what design you see her in. So, I'm not going to go too far on this. I've actually only got one other trick to show off. And that's, it really only applies to this level here. And that is, if you climb to the top of a ladder, to where Mario's not actually in harm's way of the barrels. In the NES version only, the barrels will never go down the ladder, as long as you are at the top of it. Unfortunately, in the arcade version, they do still plow right into if you're sitting at the top of a ladder. And starting from the second cycle, not really so much in the first cycle, I mean it does a little bit, but from the second cycle onward the barrels start to get really tricky. A lot of times they will try to go down a ladder if you're right in front of it. The NES version's a lot more balanced as far as how the difficulty increases in each cycle. Like the arcade version, there really wasn't a whole lot to do to increase the difficulty. All it really did was change the patterns. Because like Donkey Kong threw out all the tricks and it was all at max speed right from the get-go in the first cycle. Here, you know, it starts out really slow on the first couple cycles. It doesn't get up to max speed until the third cycle. And the pattern doesn't really change so much as it gradually introduces more elements to what Donkey Kong does. It doesn't really apply so much to like the spring stage and the rivet stage or the cement factory, but in that first level, like it starts out he just throws barrels, and if you wait a really long time he'll throw one down that bounces diagonally around. But in later cycles he'll start throwing that one that bounces diagonally sooner, as well as he'll start throwing ones that go like all the way down diagonally to the right, or like he might throw it diagonally to the right and it starts bouncing back and forth once it gets to the center of the screen. And of course this is in addition to increased gameplay speed. I'm not going to go on this forever. I'm only going to go until I game over, because this really is all there is to the game, as it just gets slightly harder. I mean, I think once you reach the third cycle, the game's at its maximum difficulty, and it really does just repeat. See, there's that diagonal barrel there. Oof. Not good. But yeah, this is very much an arcade-style game. This game did so much for the world of video games. Before this, game developers thought pretty much that all you could do was create things like asteroids, you know, where you have dots and lines. So I am paying my respects to one of the best things to ever happen to the world of video gaming with this Let's Play. This will be a 3-part Let's Play. I'm calling it Let's Play Donkey Kong Classics because there was a compilation cartridge on the NES called Donkey Kong Classics that had Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., and Donkey Kong 3. I will be covering each of these 3 games in their own episode. The next episode will be Donkey Kong Jr. There was a Donkey Kong 2 that was only released as a Game & Watch, but it is basically the final level, or the final stage of Donkey Kong Jr. on repeat. And with that, I have game overed. And that is it for Donkey Kong. This has been the first episode of Let's Play Donkey Kong Classics. I am Blaumagier, and I will see you guys next time as we take on Donkey Kong Jr. See you guys then.